Chapter 9. Zicheng's first combat ability. Will not put Wei Ran in danger, but he doesn't feel at ease if she stays at home, so in the end he takes her out together so that he can feel at ease in front of his eyes. Chen Wei drove around in various streets, usually bustling commercial streets crowded with people, but tonight there were very few. Jianfeng and Guming sat in the last row and looked around. Zicheng closed his eyes and was near the induction. Wei Ran played with Zicheng's clean bones. After a while he opened his eyes quickly, with a faint sneer on his lips, and said coldly, "A small underground bar in the first 300 meters. Chen Wei drove forward, and sure enough he saw a bar open and small bar in the bomb shelter. He parked his car diagonally across from the little bar. Judging by the lights and festoons on the facade, it is in business, but looking in from the glass door, it is pitch black and extremely quiet. Guming murmured, "It would be great if I knew how many there are." Then he heard Zicheng say 5, all in the air raid shelter below the 3 looked at Zicheng at the same time and said in unison, "This ability is too powerful." Wei Ran smiled triumphantly and raised her eyebrows. Several of them equipped Alaska and pistols one by one, and then put them into their equipment bags. Wei Ran loaded Zicheng's gun with bullets and waited for Zicheng to pack the gun, carry the equipment bag, and arrange his clothes. Zicheng looked at her pleasing expression and was very happy in his heart. "Stay in the car, don't get out of the car, and don't open the door for others." Although Zicheng's tone was gentle, there was no doubt about it. In fact, Zicheng didn't say anything, and Wei Ran wouldn't follow her. After all, she didn't have supernatural powers and zombies couldn't fight in close quarters, so she couldn't rashly follow her. She turned sideways and kissed Zicheng's side face, then nodded obediently. "Okay, I'll wait for you to come back here." The car door automatically opened to the right. Guming got out of the car first, and looked left and right at the empty space on the street. Jianfeng and Chen Wei also got off the bus one after another. And finally, Zicheng. Guming turned on the small light fixed above his chest and looked into the darkness inside the glass door. The tables and chairs are neatly arranged, and there is indeed nothing unusual. The 3 looked at Zicheng and waited for his order. Zicheng took a few steps forward calmly, gently opened the door, and walked to the stairs leading to the underground air raid shelter. All 4 of them smelled a bloody smell. The 3 of them trained with Zicheng since they were young. Although they are not as good as Zicheng, they are still first class. Especially Guming has been in contact with the underworld. His hands are stained with a lot of blood, but at this moment he couldn't help swallowing a mouthful of saliva. Zicheng hung the Alaska in his hand obliquely on his shoulders in a slow manner, and then pushed it to his broad back at will. On his cold face, there was no emotion in his indifferent eyes, and he walked down the stairs step by step with his long legs. The air raid shelter is very long, and it is still used as a small underground bar, so there will be no bright lights, only an occasional dim wall lamp. Halfway through the air raid shelter, blood spatters began to appear on the wall, and there were dragged blood trails on the ground. The further forward, the stronger the smell of blood. Zicheng stopped suddenly. Jiang Nanfeng seemed to see something underground in front of him, and suspiciously illuminated it. It was a leg skeleton with only a little bit of flesh left and sneakers on. Jiang Nanfeng frowned. He was protecting Zicheng in the middle. He just wanted to step forward to block in front of Zicheng, but was stopped by Zicheng's strong arm. Jiang Nanfeng looked at Zicheng, but found that he was staring at the right forking entrance about 20 meters ahead. Everyone was silent for a while. At this time, there was a faint rustling sound at the entrance of the dark fork. Zicheng slowly raised his hand, clasped his thumb and ring finger and little finger, slightly bent his index finger and middle finger, tapped twice towards the entrance of the fork, and stretched out 3 more fingers. All 3 of them knew each other, held their guns in both hands, and were ready for battle. There are 3 zombies at the front right fork entrance. The rustling sound was getting closer. Zicheng waved his hands back, and the 4 of them backed away slowly to keep a safe distance from the zombies. The lights illuminate the right fork entrance at all times. And suddenly, A bloody hand grabbed the corner wall, slowly revealing a mutilated face that had been obviously bitten, and only half of the face was left. The jaw was torn and could not be closed, so the tongue was pulled down, and the saliva followed the tongue keeps dripping. The other two zombies that appeared next either had severed arms and legs, with holes in their heads that were dripping with pulp, or their stomachs had been dug out and their intestines dragged. Seeing this bloody scene, the three of them were really disgusted. Chen Wei, who has always paid attention to social festivals, couldn't help but gritted his teeth and cursed "damn it." At this time, the zombies who were unconscious and only had food in their minds smelled people and moved towards them. Gu Ming subconsciously wanted to shoot, but Mu Zicheng stopped him under pressure and said calmly, "Use your abilities as much as possible, and don't forget the purpose of our coming out." After being reminded, the other three immediately put down their guns. Although low-level zombies also have attack power, they move slowly, taking advantage of the small number now. It is a good time to train. Gu Ming pressed his ring finger and little finger with his thumb, put his index finger on the middle finger, forming two fingers intertwined, and a few traces of thunder appeared around the two fingers, which gradually became more and more obvious. He then made a fist and attacked in the direction of the zombie. 3 strikes Shanlei struck a female zombie, but because of insufficient control power, it only chopped off half of her body. Don't worry, attack the vital points. Zombies are unconscious, so they can't feel the pain. As long as they don't die, they will continue to get up, Mu Zicheng said calmly. Zhang and Feng next to him slowly opened his hands corresponding to his 5 fingers, and a snow-white ice mist would appear in the space left in the middle. When he reached the size of a ball, his fingers and forks were put together in an instant, and 2 sharpened icicles that were as long as an arm's meter appeared around him. Flying attack zombies. 1 nail passed through the female zombie whose heart was exposed because only half of her body was left after being struck by lightning, and the other nail went into the arm of another zombie and nailed him to the wall. Gu Ming concentrated on Mi Qingshen. This time Zhao Lei's control power was obviously much stronger than that of Li Ai just now. He slammed down the zombie who was about to come, split him into coke, and fell to the ground into a few pieces of fleshy charcoal. Jiang Nanfeng's ice pick was not strong enough just after it was formed, and the zombie nailed to the wall was about to break free. Seeing this, Chen Wei hurriedly made a formula and spread out his palms, but his heart was anxious and confused, and the fire on his palms was hard to control. At this time, Mu Zicheng patted him on the shoulder and said lightly, "Calm down, don't let your supernatural power control you, let it submit to you afterwards." A restrained and powerful force came into his body to help him calm down. Internal interest. He adjusted his breath, put away his emotions, felt the heart of the fire, made the flame in his hand even higher, and then pushed the huge flame towards the zombie that had already broken free. The burning illuminated the entire air raid shelter, and Gu Ming and the others looked towards the entrance. Inside was a large cave, with 4 or 5 corpses that had been devoured to a bad shape. It should be the employees of the small bar who were preparing to open the store under the air raid shelter but were attacked by zombies and died because it was difficult to call for help under the air raid shelter. Chapter 10. After entering the space forest. The zombies turned into ashes. Disgusting thing, I'll send you to the blue sky. Jiang Nanfeng glanced at the 3 dead zombies and spat hard. Mu Zicheng's dark eyes shone in the darkness, and he walked into the cave. When passing the dead body, Mu Zicheng said to Chen Wei, "Burn the body to prevent mutation." Chen Wei nodded in response. Several people started to pile up the corpses and burn them together. When he was controlling the fire, he remembered that there were still zombies alive, so he turned his head and asked Mu Zicheng, "Huh? Brother Cheng, where are the 2 zombies?" Mu Zicheng looked at the passageway on the other side of the cave, and his mouth there was a faint smile on the side, and he said lightly, "Isn't it just here by myself?" After a while, there was rustling ... the sound of shuffling feet in the air raid shelter again. Soon 2 white pupils walked out of the dark passage, covered in blood, and zombies with shards of flesh hanging from their mouths. These 2 zombies have healthy limbs and even their skin is intact. Gu Ming noticed that the zombies were different. Mu Zicheng resolved his doubts. This is someone who escaped from the hospital. Jiang Ninfeng just wanted to summon Bing, but saw two zombies suddenly hanging in the air, entangled and squeezed together. Cheng. Bai. Jiang Nanfeng, who was shocked by this scene, turned his head and wanted to call Mu Zicheng, but he stopped talking when he saw this scene. Mu Zicheng's face was full of impatience. His right palm was facing upwards and his left palm was facing downwards. His two thumbs were close to each other. The two palms gradually changed positions. Then his left palm quickly wrapped around his right thumb. A zombie has been kneaded into a ball of broken flesh. Then Mu Zicheng tapped with his well-defined and slender fingers, and the piece of broken flesh was accurately thrown into the fire. A set of hand formulas pinches flowing clouds and flowing water, which is really beautiful. You guys dispose of the corpses inside together, and I'll go up first. After watching the burning Mu Zicheng turned and walked outside before he finished speaking. Wei Ran was still on it, and he wanted to get back to her as soon as possible. Only the three of them stared dumbfounded at the unburned lump of meat on the ground, and then at Mu Zicheng, who had disappeared around the corner. Just. Like this, just. Gone. How many levels has Brother Cheng reached? Wei Ran has been lying on the car window looking sullenly at the small bar since they entered, and hasn't left for a while. It wasn't until she saw Mu Zicheng coming out of the small bar that she smiled, jumped out of the car, and ran to the opposite side. Brother, she jumped onto Mu Zicheng, wrapped her legs around his waist and buried her head in his neck. Mu Zicheng patted her upturned buttocks lightly, frowning slightly. If you cross the road without looking at the car, you will be beaten. Wei Ran playfully stuck out her pink tongue at him. She looked past Mu Zicheng but didn't see the other three, and looked at Mu Zicheng suspiciously. They burned the corpses below Mu Zicheng. Changni threw her up, carried her calmly across the road, and got into the car. Wei Ran, who had just been placed in the seat, pulled Mu Zicheng to ask, "Brother, are you not injured?" He even started to check Mu Zicheng's body. Although the zombies are low level, they should not be underestimated at the beginning. After all, the virus on them is the deadliest if there is no way to cure them. So she must be sure that there is no injury before she can rest assured. Mu Zicheng looked at her nervous face, and there was a bit of joy in his eyes. He held her soft hand, pulled it to his lips, and kissed. "I'm fine. I'll show you off when I go back tonight." Boom. A blush quickly climbed up Wei Ran's fair little face. She lowered her eyes shyly and nudged him with the small hand held by him, and said coquettishly, "Brother hates." Then he fell into Mu Zicheng's arms and didn't want to get up again. 10 minutes later, the three of Gu Ming also came out of the small bar, got into the car and drove away. A week later, the news is all telling citizens not to go out and close the doors and windows at home, and pay attention to zombies. At the same time, the government finally found out that there was a problem with the water source, shut down the waterworks and prohibited direct drinking of tap water. But there are more and more virus-infected zombies, and many people can only wait for rescue at home. Some local governments and county teams were also occupied. This time is the real end of the world. Because at most 1 month, the government will collapse because everyone is scrambling to escape. Only the county team insists on the final evacuation, but in the end, even the county team is going to be destroyed. These days, they wandered around outside day and night to train their abilities with zombies, and they were already very handy. Wei Ran packed their equipment bags on the first floor and prepared 2 full bags of food supplies, as well as several boxes of water. They usually go out all day and sometimes come back late at night. Mu Zicheng came down from the stairs and saw her busy, walked over and hugged her soft waist from behind, stroked her small face with one hand and turned to himself, bowed his head and kissed her delicate lips. Touching her forehead, she said, "How do you prepare so much?" Wei Ran's hand clasped his neck back. "I was here in the past, so of course I didn't need to prepare like this, and I can just take out what is lacking. Isn't it because I don't follow you today, so I have to prepare more? Anyway, put it in it, won't take up too much space in the car." Wei Ran didn't go out with them today. She wanted to go into the space to explore the forest. She was worried about Mu Zicheng before, but from the first time she faced the zombies, when Gu Ming and the others said how powerful Mu Zicheng was, she probably guessed that Mu Zicheng's ability had reached level 30. Zicheng also told her that she had already started researching and practicing because of the novelty when she inspired the ability, but she didn't put much effort into it. You go into the space forest today, you have to bring your equipment, and if you feel unwell, don't force yourself, come out immediately, Zicheng told him solemnly. When she said last night that she wanted to enter the space forest, he originally disagreed, but now that she can enter and leave the space at will, and the soft millstone that can't resist her is even more foamy, he can only reluctantly agree. Wei Ran turned around and hung her hands on the back of his neck, and said with a smile, well, I know, bring your equipment. Zicheng had no choice but to pinch her small and tall nose. I will meet you tonight, come back early, wait for me to sleep, huh? Okay, wait for you to come back, Wei Ran responded obediently. After seeing them off, Wei Ran turned on the laser protection net, then went back to the room and meditated on the bed, closed her eyes, calmed down, and walked as she wished. Immediately, her whole body was gradually transparent until she disappeared. Originally, when using supernatural powers, manual skills were required to activate the skills, but due to Wei Ran's unique supernatural power, space does not require any manual skills. As long as you want to go, you can do whatever you want, and she can enter at will, and then set doors anywhere in the space to exit. Including storage and taking do not need hands. Wei Ran couldn't figure out why for the time being, so she could only give up for the time being and put it aside for now. She carried her equipment bag and appeared at the entrance of the space forest. Chapter 11. The balance of the two spaces. The forest is very quiet, only a few birds chirping can be heard. Wei Ran didn't know anything about this forest. To prevent the appearance of raptors and beasts, she kept her gun tightly in her hand and walked forward vigilantly. Pushing away the dense leaves in front of her all the way, she felt a little strange in her heart. The plants here are much larger than those outside. For example, these trees feel like they are going to break through the sky, and there are vines with a meter and stems that are almost as thick as the trunks here. Even small grasses can't be called small grasses anymore, wasted. She quickly climbed over the huge vines passing by with both hands and feet, and landed on the ground with a neat jump. Passing by a clump of ferns nearly 2 meters high, a picture flashed through her mind. She stopped and stepped back. Take a closer look at the clump of plants. Stretching out his hand to touch the stem and leaves, his eyes were slightly puzzled. The root shape is like ginger, and it has unique two-shaped leaves. This is a rare medicinal material that specializes in treating bone injuries and has a significant effect on pain relief. Z fern. It's just that Z fern is only half a meter tall. I haven't seen such a strong Z fern before. Zicheng's mother is a medical researcher, and even Wei Ran has developed a strong interest. Every time Zicheng's mother enters the experiment, she will also follow her in the room, so she knows all about the types and effects of herbs. Although this fern solution is a bit different from the previous materials, it is still a herbal medicine that has a miraculous effect on bone injuries. Wei Ran couldn't wait to take down the equipment bag and take some back to make powder. The leaves were moist to the touch when she picked them. It rained not long ago. So the plants here can grow. Not only there is sunlight here, but there is also sufficient rain. This forest is really weird. Wei Ran slowly walked through the trunk of a giant tree, extending down countless air roots with thorns on the outside, and some of the thorns of the air roots still had the corpses of small animals that broke in here by mistake. Safely passed through the guard and walked to a small hillside, and saw dozens of plants as tall as small trees, but covered in silver. Wei Ran opened her eyes slightly, and ran over with an expression of disbelief to inspect these strange plants that had never been seen before. The leaves are like pine needles, white and flawless, and the stems are like a girl's meomen. Then ecstasy appeared in her eyes. Holy Jiao. How come there are so many holy Jiao here? The holy Jiao has been extinct for hundreds of years and has extremely harsh living conditions. It has only one effect. As long as a person does not die, as long as there is still a breath left, Jiao can bring them back to life. It is a magic medicine that can bring the dead back to life at any time. So many people are willing to go down the mountain of swords and sea of fire for it, thus causing its extinction. Because it was so unique, Wei Ran was extremely impressed by it. it's just that the holy Jia grass recorded in the previous materials is the size of a palm, and it took a lot of hard work to find one. But now it is not only as big as a small tree, but also in an unbelievable number. Wei Ran didn't pick them at random because of the large quantity. She took out scissors and cut a few branches and some leaf needles, then carefully packed them in transparent bags and put them in the equipment bag. She patted the holy grass inside lightly, feeling more at ease in this last world. Packed up my mood and continued walking across the slope. I was surprised to find that the Han Lingzi, which has a remarkable effect on stopping bleeding and reducing inflammation, was still abnormally thin and almost as tall as her. Don't say that after the end of the world, even in the past, Han Lingzi was a rare and precious medicinal material. Along the way, Wei Ran saw all kinds of healing herbs as well as ginseng, which were given to the tonic village, and gradually the equipment bag could no longer fit. She rearranged her equipment bag, then stood up straight and looked at the dense medical plants, and exclaimed, "This is simply a medicine storehouse." Wei Ran, who was collecting, went deeper and deeper unconsciously, and then walked to the river that was faintly heard babbling at the entrance. The river water is crystal clear, and you can still see fish schools that are 1 meter long, and the mouth of a bowl is thick swimming in the water. The river water is about as deep as your thigh. After eliminating the danger in the river, Wei Ran squatted by the river to wash her dirty hands from picking herbs, and washed her sweaty face with water. Wei Ran got up with a bag full of treasures on her back, estimated the time outside in her heart, and felt that she would go back first. Suddenly, there was a soft rustling sound from the low-lying dense plants on the other side of the river. Wei Ran's heart tightened. Immediately raise the gun and aim it in the direction of the abnormal movement. I saw a big porcupine coming out from under the plants and ran back into the forest in a blink of an eye. Wei Ran immediately put down her guard, looked in the direction of the big porcupine that disappeared into the forest, and then turned to look at the medical herb store behind. It seems that the resources here are very rich. I am not afraid that there will be no fresh food and herbs in the future. Next time I come here, I can grow some melons, vegetables and fruits. Wei Ran smiled. The river was flowing towards her, indicating that the forest was still growing. It looks like this is downstream, so next time you come here, you have to go up the river and see what the environment is like over there, Wei Ran murmured to herself with her eyes raised. Just when she wanted to go out, she inadvertently glanced to the right and found a smear of red looming behind a clump of plants. She walked over curiously, and a distinctive red fruit tree fell into her eyes. The trees in the forest along the way just now are all giant trees as towering as the sky, but it is a dwarf tree half the height of a person, and the tree body is as uneven as a durian. Compared with the surrounding plants, this tree seems to be half dead, but the fruit full of trees proves its vitality. The fruit of the tree is also strange. No, it is better to say that the fruit is as beautiful as the tree is as ugly as it is strange. The size of an apple, the garnet red is delicate, smooth and shiny. Hanging on the tree is as dazzling as countless red diamonds. Wei Ran couldn't help picking one and thought about it for a while. I still picked a few more by hand and carefully put them in the bag. She thought that even if the fruit is highly poisonous, she should take it back to study and use it. When she returned to the room with a full load, she saw Zicheng frowning tightly and with a gloomy expression. Zicheng saw that she suddenly appeared in the room safe and sound, and immediately he relaxed, and the gloom dissipated immediately, but he still frowned and walked towards her quickly. Seeing Zicheng's ugly face, Wei Ran thought something happened, so she asked first, "What's wrong, brother? Why did you come back at noon today?" Zicheng's eyes showed a rare surprise. She remained silent for a while and said, Ran, it's already the morning in 3 days' time." Wei Ran slightly opened Yuan Xing, with a surprised expression on her face, but I'll only go in for 3 hours at most. She clearly remembered that she went in at 9 o'clock this morning, and now it's only 1 o'clock at most, so why is it 3 days later? And there is no night in the forest, it is always day. At this time, she flashed through the trees, plants, herbs, and fish in the river in the space forest. Everywhere in the entire forest was full of weirdness. Zicheng carefully observed the herbs that Wei Ran brought out from the space forest. It is true that even if you have money, you can't find precious things here. Hearing her talk about the strangeness inside again, I gradually understood. Ran, there should be no concept of time in your space. For example, the storage space stagnates in time so as to achieve the storage capacity. The space forest is time fast and there is no night. Now it seems that the time inside is several times that of the outside, but it is actually far longer. This is to allow the creatures inside to grow quickly. These two spaces correspond to each other. In order to achieve the balance of your entire space, there will be no cracks. Chapter 12. Space is her powerful obsession. Zicheng held her slender and firm arm. Do you have any abnormalities such as fatigue? Zicheng worried that her body would also be affected in the forest. Wei Ran felt it for a while and there was no problem, not even tiredness. No, everything is fine, not even tiredness. Zicheng was relieved. It seems that people will not be affected by it. But Zicheng looked at Wei Ran with a dark look in his eyes, and there were some things he didn't say. It has an unlimited and timeless storage function, as well as abundant and endless resources in the forest, and a wide variety of precious herbs that she is familiar with, and even long-extinct herbs are inside. This space is not so much a supernatural power, but rather a real different world formed by Wei Ran with strong obsession. This explains why she can have this new ability that has never appeared before, and why she can activate it and enter the ability space at will, without any tricks. Because the ability space was created by her. The pink plush pen from last time has confirmed that this space of hers has existed since she was a child, but the function of this space is completely for the end of the world. It is impossible to support this strong will to build a complex and perfect different world without going through thousands of unbearable pains and tribulations. But when she was young, it was impossible for her to know what resources should be needed in the apocalypse, and she herself said that the dream of the apocalypse only appeared in the last few months. Zicheng intuitively told him that Wei Ran was hiding some of the most important things. Some things she doesn't want to talk about, don't want to think about, and are related to him. His hands under the table were clenched into fists. Why did this different world of hers begin? Wei Ran never thought that her two abilities could complement each other meaningfully. She just thought it was just one ability. She said in confusion, I don't know about this, it hasn't appeared before, and I don't even know it exists. Wei Ran vaguely seemed to understand the source of this supernatural space. Zicheng felt that her heart was in disarray, sighed, and then stepped forward to embrace her lovingly. Gently stroking her back, coaxed, there is no need to think about anything else, just think that this is your unique ability. He suddenly thought of something and smiled lowly. Wei Ran looked at Zicheng blankly. Brother, what are you laughing at? Zicheng put his hands on her cheeks and squeezed them in between. Wei Ran Shen was turned into a pouting pig. Zicheng shook her head lightly again and said softly, my brother will be raised by this rich woman, Ran. Wei Ran's little hand covered Zicheng's hand that pouted his face. Blaming my brother will bully me. Wei Ran couldn't get out of the tiger's palm after struggling a few times, so she softly begged for mercy. Oh, my brother, let me go, I'm going to take a bath. This cute look let Zicheng be distracted, and immediately kissed her and said indistinctly, brother will take you to take a bath. Then he picked her up and walked into the room, and after a while he heard the woman's slight rejection but could not resist. The voice was locked inside as the Yushi door gradually closed. It has been almost an hour since she left Yu's room, and her hands are so sore that they are about to break. Sitting at the dining table on the first floor, she took a few red fruits picked from the forest and looked at them repeatedly, but she didn't see anything wrong. She cut it open again, and the flesh was juicy and delicious. But Wei Ran didn't dare to try it lightly, so she left her seat and went upstairs to find a bottle to put it in. Wait until there are mice and then use it for experiments. When she came down again, she saw Gu Ming and the three of them eating the red fruit she had just cut. Terrified, Wei Ran raised her voice and shouted anxiously, spit it out quickly. This fruit may be extremely poisonous. The 3 of them turned green when they heard that it was poisonous and said in unison, "I've already swallowed it." Wei ran when he hurriedly went to the room to find the antidote herbs and holy jiacao. The noise was so loud that Zicheng frowned and followed Wei Ran down. She didn't have time to make herbal medicine, so she gave each of them an arm-long, wrist-thick antidote herb and said, "Now eat all this herb." The rice and stems of big herbs with specks of soil are speechless. Then they turned to look at Zicheng with innocent eyes at the same time. But Zicheng issued an order, "Eat Ji Ming," and the 3 of them swallowed the detoxifying herb Shigengsheng in their hands, of stems and leaves, in order to save their lives. Fortunately, the root of this detoxifying herb is soft, otherwise they would have been swallowed to death before they were poisoned to death. Wei Ran gave the 3 of them a few more glasses of water, carefully observed their condition, and if they found anything else they would immediately let them eat the holy grass. But she didn't see anything unusual, so she asked aloud, "How do you feel? Is there any discomfort or pain?" The 3 felt it for themselves, and said in unison, "No," but the faces of the 3 suddenly changed, bent over and clutched his stomach. Zicheng and Wei Ran were shocked. Wei Ran hurriedly took out the holy grass and tried to stuff it into their mouths. But there was no sign of anyone, and only the 3 people's angry curses spread in the living room. "Don't fight with me for the toilet." It didn't stop until they ran to the toilet 7 or 8 times. Jiang Nanfeng asked Wei Ran bitterly, "Xiao Ran, what's the matter with that red fruit? We didn't see the poison, but it dragged us into a mess." Wei Ran also felt strange, since this red fruit is not highly poisonous. It is impossible. It's as simple as making people have diarrhea. "I don't know. I saw this fruit for the first time. After I cut it open and studied its insides, I wanted to wait until there were mice and then test whether it was poisonous. In the end, she remembered that they were holding their hands together. When I went to the toilet with my butt covering my stomach again, I couldn't help but secretly covered my mouth and smiled. Did he accidentally become that guinea pig?" The 3 gritted their teeth and cursed at each other. "Gu Ming, you're so greedy. So you're Jai Nanfeng too." Who stuffed it into Chen Wei's mouth at that time. Seeing that Zicheng didn't make a sound, Wei Ran just kept talking, staring at the 3 of them. Because he has the ability to penetrate people's hearts, he has always been able to see the sharpness that others cannot see. "There should be some clues," she asked. "Brother, did you find something?" They stopped and looked at Zicheng when they heard Wei Ran's words while they were fighting. While everyone was waiting anxiously, Zicheng said slowly, "It stands to reason that such intensive diarrhea would make the body dehydrated, but do you feel weak when?" These words came out, the 3 of them had a meal. They all touched their own bodies subconsciously. Gu Ming used his ability to adjust his breath, and said in surprise, "It's true. Not only do I not have any weakness, but I also feel a lot lighter, and the ability seems to have increased." After Jiang Nanfeng and Chen Wei tried it, they were shocked and agreed with each other. "Brother Cheng, we are too." Chapter 13. The Magical Red Fruit. Wei Ran picked up the remaining red fruit on the table and rubbed it carefully. "But we also take detoxifying herbs. Could it be the cause of the interaction between the herbs?" Chen Wei expressed his doubts. Wei Ran shook her head slightly, and said her own analysis, "No, even if the detoxifying herb is overpowering, it only has a detoxifying effect, and even if it is eaten by mistake, there will be no problems." She raised her hand. "A piece of red fruit inside it. Is this red fruit that really increases your abilities and improves your physical fitness?" The 3 of them were amazed. They only ate a piece of this red fruit, but it already had such an obvious effect of increasing power. Zicheng pushed the rest of the red fruit to them, and said flatly, "You guys share the rest." "Brother Cheng, you." Zicheng hadn't eaten this red fruit yet, and they thought in their hearts that this kind of fruit could be eaten. The strange fruit must be very rare, so Jiang Nanfeng and the other 3 wanted to say no, but Zicheng waved his hand and stopped. "You guys did increase your experience points very quickly, but these days your abilities are stuck at the level of 200,000. I feel that there is a high-level zombie hiding in the hospital, and there are a large number of zombies are besieged by the county team in the hospital, which will greatly increase the experience value. but the danger is too high, so I haven't made a decision yet. But now with the help of Hongguo we can go in immediately. Zicheng didn't continue, but the three of them understood. Going to the hospital to accumulate combat experience is the best way to grow quickly, because the hospital is now the place with the largest number of zombies, not to mention a rare high-level zombie. But because the danger is too high, and the supernatural ability breaks through less than 200,000, even with Zicheng, it is difficult to guarantee that everyone will escape unscathed. But now with the blessing of Hongguo breaking through 200,000 or even higher, it is not a problem to improve his abilities, but Zicheng still has no intention of giving up going to the hospital. Because even if there are red fruits that can increase abilities, actual combat experience is indispensable. Only actual combat can be familiar with quickly switching various summoning skills to deal with various emergencies. Wei Ran pursed her lips when she heard that Zicheng was going to the hospital. Even though she was worried, she hurriedly said, "Then eat this red fruit first, and I'll give each of you one later." Shocked to the point of confusion in the wind, Jiang Nanfeng swallowed a mouthful of saliva and said with difficulty, "Xiao Ran, didn't Brother Cheng say that you have been resting in your room these days because you are not feeling well? How could you conjure up these precious things after not seeing you for a few days?" Wei Ran's face was full of mystery. With a straight smile, he stretched out 2 index fingers and crossed them in front of his lips, and shook his head mischievously without answering. Zicheng looked at Wei Ran dotingly in his eyes. Turning back to Ming and the three, they returned to their usual indifference and just said indifferently, "Don't worry about the red fruits. You will always have them in the future. And we are the only ones who have them." When the three of them heard that they don't need to worry about the number of red fruits, they were relieved. Zicheng didn't go into detail about the red fruit, and they didn't ask about the source of the red fruit, and they didn't suspect that Zicheng was guarding against them. It was a tacit understanding between them that some things should not be asked. Trust between men is sometimes unreasonable. But soon Wei Ran frowned slightly and worried, "But now the county team of the hospital is strictly on guard. How can I get in?" Gu Ming chewed on the red fruit and looked at Zicheng with a sad face. "The county team is listen now. There is no way to sneak in." There was a flash of light in Zicheng's eyes and he parted his thin lips with a faint smile. "We are going in openly." He turned to look at the hospital. Chen Wei said quietly, "You went over to negotiate with the county team today, saying that we are willing to go in and find the people they want to save." After we left, Zicheng and Wei Ran returned to the room. Wei Ran took 2 red fruits and watched him eat them, paying attention to his condition. Although she only suffered from diarrhea, she also felt distressed. But this situation did not happen to Zicheng. Wei Ran fiddled with the instrument that could make herbal medicine into powder from the space. She looked at Zicheng, who was smoking on the balcony during the break between making it. She thought that Zicheng must have other ideas when he went to the hospital. She walked out of the balcony and stood beside him side by side. "Brother, the county team of the hospital went in and wiped out before, and they have lost several waves of people. Now even the county team dare not attack and can only defend. Now you risk attacking in order to let them accumulate the experience value is one aspect. Is it more for the county team to remember this situation?" Knowing that Wei Ran doesn't like the smell of smoke, so Zicheng, who didn't want the smoke in his hand to smell Wei Ran, noticed Wei Ran coming. The cigarette was extinguished before. Zicheng looked sideways at Wei Ran with a smile in his eyes, as if he was satisfied with Wei Ran's guess of his thoughts. He embraced Wei Ran and turned his eyes to the distance. "Now the hospital is a time bomb for the county team. It cannot be attacked and it is extremely difficult to defend. It is necessary to ensure that the zombies inside cannot escape, and to guard against zombies that will appear at any time behind. Has been gradually unable to do what it wants. If someone volunteers to go at this time at most 1 week, the government will be paralyzed and the county team will dominate the mess at that time. Although the county team will be destroyed later, the core figures in the county team will still retreat to establish a base. In the previous life, it was considered a relatively formal and disciplined base, but it was no longer a county team but a self-reliant king." Zicheng continued to speak softly. "I still remember you said that after the county team was destroyed, there was a colonel named Ling who led the rest of the county people to stand out from the encirclement and build a base. It is still a fairly large base. I have been using the ability to inquire into the county team of the hospital and heard that they are discussing how to rescue the Colonel who has not come out since entering the hospital before. But according to the information fed back from the vital sign device, this person is still alive. The county team wants to organize people to go in for rescue, but so far there is no suitable candidate. If I guess correctly, what makes the county team so nervous is Ling, who appeared in your dream of the last days. Wei Ran was slightly surprised and understood that Zicheng was going to start weaving his own network of relationships in the troubled times. Wei Ran didn't know how Ling in his previous life got out of the hospital, but he did survive. Since he will definitely survive, Zicheng will use this opportunity to go to the hospital to accumulate practical experience to rescue him by the way. The county people have lived collectively for a long time, and they all have one thing in common, that is, blood, emphasizing friendship. Zicheng wanted Ling to remember this, whether it was helping the county team and voluntarily going to the hospital to kill zombies, or saving his life. This was a huge blessing to Zicheng and Wei Ran. Benefit. When Chen Wei negotiated with the county, he didn't disclose the power, so the county felt that even the county didn't dare to enter the place easily, let alone that they were just ordinary people. And they might just die, so they kept disagree at first. But when Chen Wei took out the chemical laser gun that Zicheng asked him to bring with him, the chemical laser gun developed by the Abala country and had not yet spread to the Hua country, the county team was shocked. In the past, chemical laser weapons were bulky and cumbersome, but Abala Nation has developed a portable chemical laser gun that can be carried anywhere. Huaguo has contacted Huaguo many times before to express his intention to purchase, but Abala has never sold it outside. Now it is in the hands of this ordinary person in their eyes. If it was Huaguo, which used to have strict gun control, Chen Wei would have been criminally detained and interrogated as a terrorist early in the morning. But now that the situation is being tightened, the government and the county have no choice but to think about whether these are in compliance with the regulations and finally have to agree. Chapter 14. Entering Huaxia Hospital. Huaxia Hospital is a private hospital with complete medical and elderly care facilities. Therefore, it needs a very large floor area. In order to meet the requirements of a quiet environment, it was originally located in the suburbs. Huaxia Hospital, which has long been cut off from water and electricity, stands in the open suburbs in late autumn, and a large pile of fallen leaves that no one has cleaned in front of the gate is blown up and down by gusts of autumn wind. The Huaxia Hospital, which used to be bustling with each other, now looks particularly eerie in the solitude. Occasionally I can vaguely see shadows flashing by the window from the outside, which is very strange. Zhang Nanfen parked the car behind the defense line of the county team, opened the rear compartment, and everyone focused on sorting out their guns. After loading the chemical laser gun and the light machine gun, hang the guns diagonally on the shoulders on both sides. Wei Ran was wearing tights for combat with 2 pistols pinned to her outer thighs and a small sharp knife around her waist. Originally, the hospital was too dangerous, so Zicheng strongly disagreed with her coming, but she was unwilling to give in. Huaxia Hospital was too dangerous. She had to be there to ensure that their guns and ammunition were always sufficient, so that they would have no worries when fighting. In the end, Zicheng failed in her sentence: if there is any emergency, I will hide in the space. Indeed, space is the best refuge in times of danger. Zicheng personally organized the equipment bag for her, carried it on the back for Wei Ran, and then carefully checked her weapons and equipment. In the end, he held her wrist tightly and looked at Wei Ran sternly without any refutation after entering. You can only stay by my side, and you can't leave even one step. Wei Ran nodded solemnly. Zicheng knocked on the car and waved at them. Yu Ming and the 3 immediately surrounded him. Zicheng looked at them and said slowly, there are more than 3,000 zombies in the hospital, and the zombie with a high rank hides in the innermost part of the hospital. It is conscious and can pretend. You must be absolutely careful and treat anyone and anything inside. None can be taken lightly. The 3 nodded heavily. At this time, a county official came over from the county team, and he could see from the badge that the county rank was not low. Although it was Chen Wei who came to negotiate with them at that time, but from now on it can be seen that these people are surrounded by this cold and handsome man standing in the middle. The sheriff decided that this man was the leader. Just how many people? And a thin woman? With a serious and suspicious face, he looked directly at Zicheng and shouted angrily, "You are only these people, can you do it? And you have a woman with no strength to restrain a chicken, you really don't need us together, go in. The danger inside is beyond your imagination." Wei Ran took out the gun pinned to her thigh at lightning speed and pointed at the county magistrate viciously. "Who do you say can't do it? Who else has no hands? The power the we." County official was startled. The speed was so fast that he could hardly see her draw the gun. Jiang Nanfeng and the others lowered their heads and pursed their lips, snickering. Wei Ran's behavior of almost blindly protecting Zicheng was obvious to all of them during this period of time, but it's okay to say anything bad. Also, everyone in the Mu family has been able to protect themselves since they were young, and even shooting is something that needs to be learned. Zicheng looked at Wei Ran's ruthless mocking, and the corners of his mouth slightly curled up. As if she was afraid that she would be tired, she lightly pressed down her hand holding the gun and carefully checked Wei Ran's equipment again, then slowly put on her equipment bag and loaded the bullet in her hand. Only then did he cast a little indifferent gaze and stared at the county official coldly. Then he turned around and walked steadily towards Huaxia Hospital with long legs. Several other people followed Zicheng in without fear. The people in the frontline county who were on guard at the defense line were surprised that, although these few had chemical laser guns, the equipment bag didn't seem to hold much, and there were thousands of zombies inside. A little soldier ran up behind the county magistrate and saw that Zicheng and the others had entered the hospital. He opened his mouth and asked in a low voice, "Lieutenant Colonel Shao, can they bring out the colonel? Shangguan, who is trapped in the hospital. Come, let people unconsciously want to surrender." He had only had this feeling of fear in one person before, and that was Shangguan Ling. After entering the hospital gate, the surroundings were like dead silence. The tables, chairs, and plants in the hospital hall were toppled, and there were still bloodstains everywhere on the ground. Zicheng and Wei Ran walked in front, and the three of Guoming were on his left and right sides, keeping an eye on the surrounding situation at all times. The lobby of Huaxia Hospital was very large, and it took 10 minutes for a few people to walk most of it. 20 meters ahead was a pharmacy. Zicheng stopped, and the three of them immediately stood on guard. I only heard Zicheng say in a low voice, 20, try not to make any noise to attract other zombies. The three of Guoming nodded in response. They slowly surrounded them. Chen Wei peeked in through the glass window, and sure enough, there were dense zombies wandering around, but the door was locked from the outside. Because the pharmacy warehouse is distributed in the hall, the doors and windows are all specially made. It seems that someone deliberately introduced zombies and trapped them inside. Chen Wei just wanted to make a trick, but was stopped by Zicheng. Zicheng looked at Jiang Nanfeng and gave a clear command, "Nanfeng, put the water in." After Jiang Nanfeng heard the command, he raised his hand to make a tactic, pressing his thumb and middle finger, palm facing left, ring finger and tail point upright, immediately finger down. The floor of the pharmacy suddenly burst out with a layer of water covering the ankles. Water also flowed out along the gap of the door mixed with blood and flesh. Wei Ran frowned slightly. I don't know how many people this pile of zombies had eaten. Zicheng took Wei Ran and moved 2 steps to the dry place. Then he gave another instruction, Guoming, discharge the water inside. Guoming's thumbs, index fingers, and little fingers stood upright and pointed at each other, and his middle finger and ring finger flexed to touch each other. Then a slight electric current appeared, and he pointed at the pharmacy. The pharmacy instantly became a high-voltage electric room with tens of thousands of volts. And under the action of strong electric current mixed with water, the damage is doubled, directly turning the zombies inside into coke silently. Guoming and Jiang Nanfeng had never killed so many zombies at one time, and they looked at the zombies lying all over the pharmacy in surprise. Zicheng took them outside to hunt down zombies these days, and he has already understood the abilities of the three of them. For example, which skill is used to single-click the most damage, and which skill combination will produce the most damage. But this is the first time such an effect has been achieved. It seems that Hongo has increased their abilities by more than 200,000, and will soon reach 300,000. Zicheng approached the pharmacy and looked inside. He saw 2 zombies in tattered county clothes, and he checked the lock on the outside of the door. It should be that these 2 county people risked their lives to lure the zombies on the first floor into the pharmacy, and then someone should lock it up outside. Wei Ran saw that there were a lot of medicines in the pharmacy that would be in short supply in the future. Although the medicines in the spatial forest were already available, it was fine to keep the medicines in front of me for future favors. So when Guoming and the others were vigilant about their surroundings, she quietly put all the medicines into the space, and finally saw those 2 tragic county people, and sighed softly in her heart. Chen Wei went to the front to explore the way and came back and said, "Brother Cheng, there are stairs to go up." Zicheng nodded and raised his thin chin lightly to signal to continue walking. Chapter 15. Inside the Huaxia Hospital, AD. You walked through the stopped elevator, and then passed through a blood-stained corridor. There were still rotten human limbs or pieces of meat with belts on the ground. The stench made people sick. Jiang Nanfeng frowned tightly and said in a low voice in disgust, "If you become such a thing, it's better to just shoot yourself to death." Guoming jokingly said, "Then I will be the first one to kill you. Man, let you get rid of it as soon as possible." Chen Wei added another foot, "Then I will be the second." Jiang Nanfeng was annoyed. "Damn, get out." Listening to the daily bickering between the 3 of them, Wei Ran didn't say anything this time. If you can laugh, it was indeed Jiang Nanfeng who was injured by zombies in order to save Zicheng in the last life, and committed suicide by himself. Immediately afterwards, Chen Wei also fell into the group of zombies because of Zicheng. Although Zicheng didn't say anything during that time, Wei Ran could feel that his pain lasted for a long time. So during that time, it was rare for Wei Ran to stay by his side obediently and quietly. Wei Ran, who was caught in memories, was brought back to her thoughts by the warmth wrapped in her hands, and her clear eyes turned to look at Zicheng's profile. He just looked ahead, squeezed her hand again, and his warm voice reminded him again, "Follow me closely." She relaxed and shook his warm hand back. "This is no longer the previous life, everything is different. The stairs of the hospital have always been dark and cold, and they have the worst aura in the whole hospital, so is Huaxia. Although it is daytime now because the staircase is semi-enclosed, there is only a magazine-sized window on the connecting platform between the 2 staircases. Normally, sensor lights are used to increase the lighting, but now that the power is cut off, the light in the stairwell is dim and oppressive." Zicheng and the others turned on the light above his chest and went up to the 2nd floor. Suddenly, the stair door on the 2nd floor was pushed open, and 5 zombies rushed out one after another, and they were about to arrive in front of them. Boom. A white light flashed. In front of everyone, a large silver transparent shield stood in front of them and bounced off the zombies. The 3 of them looked in amazement at Zicheng, who was tall and slender in front of him. He put his hands together at 45 degrees, forming a triangle shape, and summoned a protective shield. This was the first time Zicheng summoned a protective shield, so the 3 of Guoming didn't know that Zicheng had such a powerful protective skill. Immediately afterwards, Zicheng's long and clean fingers quickly changed the hand formula to attack, and the 5 zombies were torn into pieces in an instant. In the previous life, because Wei Ran didn't want to be with Zicheng, it was rare to see Zicheng killing zombies in the blink of an eye. So the 3 people who hadn't fully jumped out of the state of astonishment heard the following conversation again. "Brother, look at the way you're making tricks. Watch it. Ran likes to watch it. Brother will show it to you later. Okay, the 3 of them. Brother Chang and Xiao Ran, it's okay for the 2 of you to be bored, but respect today's occasion, it's not the right time to be bored." When passing through the 3rd, 4th, and 5th floors, they all encountered zombies, but they were quickly resolved. When he was about to reach the 6th floor, Zicheng stopped walking, looked at the door at the corner, tilted his head slightly and whispered to the three of them, "There are more than 500 zombies in this building. I'll figure it out later. It's okay to use a gun in an emergency." Hearing Mu Zicheng's words, Gu Mingmo had already made them eager to try. They gently pushed open the fire door on the 6th floor. The 6th floor was an inpatient department for children, but it had already become one of the places where zombies gathered in the hospital. "No matter what you see later, you must not soften your heart. Remember that no one here is human anymore," Mu Zicheng reminded everyone coldly. Although the children were transferred immediately after the zombies appeared, not all of them could be rescued in time. Unfortunately, more than a dozen young children and newborns were killed by falling into the zombies. Mu Zicheng is giving them an injection first. Don't be caught by the so-called compassion in the last days. As long as they become zombies, no matter how young they are, there is only one way, that is to kill them, to truly free them. The three of Gu Ming kept Mu Zicheng's words in their hearts. As soon as I entered the ward area, I saw many zombies wandering in the aisle. And as soon as they appeared in the ward area, large groups of zombies began to smell fresh food from various wards, consulting rooms, and rehabilitation rooms, dragging their mutilated bodies densely in the aisle and walking towards them. While walking, he moaned in agony. They retreated to the slightly more spacious reception desk. Mu Zicheng summoned a larger protective shield to protect everyone. Jiang Ninfeng pinched his fingers and summoned a large cloud of ice clouds above the zombie's head, instantly revealing countless sharp ice picks as big as the mouth of a bull, and hitting the zombie. Crowds of zombies fell to the ground because they were split by ice picks piercing their heads. Gu Ming summoned rolling thunder, and more than a dozen thunderbolts slammed down on the crowds of zombies one after another. Gu Ming's thunder is not as weak as it was the first time. Now the power of a single thunder, let alone a dozen or so, the group of zombies struck by the powerful lightning instantly turned into meat slag. Wei Ran saw a female zombie holding a baby zombie in her arms who looked like she was just a few days old at the time. This should be the mother who turned into a zombie in order to protect her child. But after becoming a zombie, she no longer has ideology, and is only a puppet who moves only to drink blood and eat meat. The female zombie, the little zombie who was still hugging her tightly like a treasure in 1 second, suddenly went to the next second. The shield side gap is thrown in. Wei Ran quickly jumped onto a diagnosis table, pulled out a pistol with a silencer attached to her thigh with both hands, aimed at the little zombies in the air with cold eyes and shot accurately one after another. The little zombie, which was already crippled, shattered into several bloody little pieces and fell 1 meter in front of the shield. Others didn't have any emotions when they saw it. The first thing to survive in the last days is to never have such a stupid mentality of sympathy for zombies. So they all still continued to display their skills non-stop. Chen Wei summoned the raging fire, and instantly a flaming fire dragon appeared in the sky above the zombies. It circled towards the group of zombies, and the zombies turned into ashes wherever it went. It returned to the sky above the zombies and immediately swooped towards the center of the zombies. A burst of flames shot up into the sky and dissipated, and all the zombies surrounded by the fire dragon circle were reduced to ashes. Mu Zicheng's dark eyes turned slightly upwards, and after thinking for a while he retracted the protective shield, and then called out the protective shield. Everyone only heard Mu Zicheng say forcefully, "Stay here and continue attacking, don't come out immediately afterwards." The protective cover flashed out. Wei Ran subconsciously followed 2 steps and shouted anxiously, "Brother," but in the end she didn't follow out of the protective shield. Although Mu Zicheng didn't say anything, she knew very well that there must be his intentions, and if she followed her rashly like this, it would ruin his affairs. Therefore, the 3 of them were prevented from getting out of the protective shield, and the bottom of the eyes said gloomily, "Wait for him here." Previous chapter. Bookmark. Back to directory. Next chapter. Omi Bookshelf Writing History. The content of this site is only for free learning and exchange, and shall not be used for any commercial purposes. Chapter 16. The 3 with the strongest skills. Saw that Wei Ran, who usually only had Mu Zicheng in his eyes, said this, so they knew that Zicheng had his plan. They can only redouble their attacks in the protective cover to ensure the safety of Zicheng. Zicheng speeded up his movements to the point where he almost flashed past every stop. Wei Ran and the others could hardly see Zicheng, let alone let the zombies touch him. Jiang Nanfeng was distracted because he was worried about Zicheng's safety. He accidentally stepped out of the protective shield when attacking. He attacked the zombies in front of him, but he didn't notice that several zombies nearby rushed up. It was too late when Jiang Nanfeng found out. He thought he was going to end his game like this. At this moment, Zicheng flashed to Jiang Nanfeng's side and grabbed him by the back of the collar and stepped back to the protective shield. Jiang Nanfeng was terrified. Zicheng supported him with one hand, and with a cold expression, with one hand he instantly blasted dozens of zombies into pieces of meat and fell to the ground. Rows of glass windows were shattered and splashed everywhere with the strong impact of the explosion. There was a lot of commotion this time. Half of the zombies on the 6th floor hadn't been killed, and the rest of the zombies that had alarmed the building came to gather on the 6th floor. There were more and more zombies. Zicheng calmly waved his hands back to signal them to retreat slowly, keeping a defensive distance. At this time, when Gu Ming and the others were dealing with the large number of zombies just now, they had already used the most powerful skills one after another, so the consumption of abilities was multiplied and high, and they were almost exhausted at this time. And with such a large number of zombies, even if they can't be killed with a chemical laser gun, they can be killed with a cannon, but it may cause the whole building to collapse. They have retreated in a corner, and there is no way to retreat at this moment. Standing in front of everyone, Zicheng's eyes flickered sharply, and he shifted his hands quickly to pinch each extremely complicated finger formula. In the end, the hand formula stayed on the left hand, wrapping the right hand, with the right thumb pointing up. With coldness in the corner of his mouth, he slowly opened his thin lips and uttered a clear word "Zhu," and in an instant, silver light shone, illuminating the entire 6th floor. But Wei Ran and the others were blinded by the silver light behind Zicheng, so they had to stretch out their hands to block part of the light in front of their eyes to try to see clearly. I could only vaguely see dense silvery rays of light appearing under the gathered zombies, and there seemed to be a pattern. But before he had time to see what it was, these silver lights floated up from the ground and disappeared on the zombie in an instant. All of a sudden, the 6th floor returned to its original state, silent and silent, and silent. Wei Ran and the others turned their eyes and looked around, but there was no difference. No, there is a difference. The zombies are not moving at all. Chen Wei walked slowly over to observe the zombies who were only 10 steps away from the protective shield. Suddenly, the zombie made a slight noise, and Chen Wei and the three quickly set up the chemical laser gun in their hands. But what followed was that the bodies of the zombies split one by one, rolling to the ground, and the cut surface seemed to be cut by a sharp saw knife. The three of them stared dumbfounded at the bloody picture of a large slaughterhouse in front of them, and swallowed a mouthful of saliva with difficulty. These hundreds of zombies killed. But Wei Ran's eyes were filled with disbelief. This is the strongest skill that will be triggered after the spiritual consciousness reaches level 100 array. Brother has reached level 100? After Zicheng put away the protective cover, she walked quickly to Zicheng's side in surprise and saw him. Wei Ran's black bead-like pupils shrank tightly. Zicheng's face turned slightly pale at this moment. The indestructible shield requires constant consumption of the summoner's ability, and array is the strongest skill. Once used, it is likely to leave only a remnant of the ability, so even the spiritual awareness ability user who can practice here generally can't use it. Don't dare to use it lightly. During Zicheng's period, he not only maintained the protective shield, but also activated the silver light array for the first time. After a large amount of power consumption, there is still 1/3 left, which is already very powerful. But especially so, Zicheng also felt very uncomfortable with the QI and blood in his body. Gu Ming panted, frowned, and looked forward to Zicheng. Brother Cheng, I feel that the power is getting weaker and weaker. The other two also nodded one after another. Their situation is the same as Gu Ming. Wei Ran suddenly remembered the herbs she brought out from the forest to restore her body's functions. She mixed other herbs with the same effect to make a potion, thinking about bringing it this time to see the effect. She quickly took out a few bottles of potion as thick as fingers from her bag and handed them to Gu Ming and the others. This is a potion that can quickly restore supernatural energy, but it's unknown how much it will recover, so I can only drink it first and see. After opening a few bottles and handing them to Zicheng, he spoke eagerly, "Brother, drink it quickly. Even if you can't recover all of it, you can calm down the discomfort the corners of." Zicheng's mouth slightly raised, and he took Wei Ran's hand after drinking the potion in the bottle. It took only a few minutes for Zicheng to feel his body, which was still strongly uncomfortable just now, return to calm. He raised his hand and gently rubbed her softly to comfort her. Ran, don't worry, I'm fine." She held Zicheng's cold hand, her eyes flushed. How could it be all right? In the past, her brother's hands were warm for her. Zicheng knew that she was worried and sad, so he pulled her into his arms. "How can you cry? Be good, my brother is really fine after drinking your potion, and most of his abilities have recovered." Wei Ran only then did he raise his head and look carefully at Zicheng's face return to its original state. Then he bent down and smiled with moist eyes. "Then brother, drink again." Zicheng had nothing to do with her, so he drank 2 more bottles. The 3 of Gu Ming also drank 4 more bottles. However, Zicheng's powers were still only half restored, while Gu Ming and the others only recovered half of them. But fortunately, the body function has returned to the best state. For example, the previous fatigue is gone. After resting for a while on the 6th floor, several people continued to go up. Before, Zicheng noticed that Chen Wei's abilities were almost exhausted, but there were still a large group of zombies moving around upstairs. So Zicheng set up an array on the 6th floor, and then used the sound of explosions to lure all the zombies in this building into the array on the 6th floor, annihilating them all in one fell swoop. The remaining scattered ones were also wiped out one by one, and the zombies in this building have been cleaned up. They went all the way to the top 8th floor. This is an important warehouse of the hospital, because medicines and medical equipment are here. Seeing so many medical items, Wei Ran was eager to store them in joy. She pulled the corner of Zicheng's clothes with joy on her face. Zicheng couldn't understand her little thoughts. So then they walked into every medicine warehouse and medical equipment warehouse, as if they were shopping in a shopping mall. When they came out, Gu Ming and the other 3 came out first, and Zicheng and Wei Ran were the last to come out. And when the 2 of them came out, the warehouse was empty. When passing through a utility room, Zicheng's footsteps faltered slightly, and he looked sideways at a black air vent covered the size of a person on the wall. He squinted slightly and took a few steps towards the vent. The others thought that there were zombies on it, so they set up their guns and pointed them at the vents. But Zicheng waved his fingers falsely to signal them to put down their guns. Wei Ran and Gu Ming looked at Zicheng with puzzled faces. But Zicheng's eyes were still cold, and he said to the vent, "Do you still want to stay here, Colonel Shengguan?" Wei Ran paused slightly and looked at the vent. No wonder he was still alive, it turned out he was hiding here. Previous chapter. Bookmark. Back to directory. Next chapter. Almi bookshelf reading history. The content of this site is only for free learning and exchange and shall not be used for any commercial purposes.